We know that China's a huge number of jobs have moved, American companies there in wholesale fashion. We know that they're competing with us for raw materials around the world. But so far, they have not launched an assault on what we might regard as our strategic industries, semiconductors, airplanes, cars. Chinese have not been able to export cars yet to our market. So the question is, does the continued emergence of China pose a direct threat to American economic interests, to how we define ourselves as the high value added boys? We are the kings of the technology world. Do you feel that the Chinese model is going to allow them to steamroll our current position?
Well, two thoughts occur to me. One, I should just say that the day before yesterday I was in Washington at a dinner where I was giving a little sort of guiding a discussion from the Semiconductor Association. There are like 35 CEOs of all the big semiconductor companies there, and you know what their topic was? Do we have a future in China? I think increasingly I hear companies speaking quite darkly about their prospects in China, whereas previously these businesses were the heart and soul of the sort of booster class for better relations with China. That's quite an interesting change. I think the other big change that we're sitting right on the precipice of, but it's actually begun, is Chinese FDI into the U.S. And in fact, in the semiconductor world, I heard that the first purchase has now been made of American, semiconductor company.
So are the American semiconductor people, are they concerned that they're just not going to have a market in China, or do they see competition emerging from China?
They're wary that they're going to be squeezed out of China, that the Chinese are investing $100 billion, so they say, to have sort of like what they did in the solar panels, solar energy, and that they're willing to invest exactly what many, I think, of the more sober senators and congresspeople in our country think we ought to be doing. But when they do it, of course, it's unfair trade practices. So I think that there's a lot of huge changes. I wonder whether American and European investment in China is going to proceed as rapidly as it has in the past. I think one thing that we'll see more of is a lot of Chinese money coming out.
Do you think their model, can this model of an economy dominated by state-owned enterprises listening to what the party tells them, are they capable of making the leap to the most advanced industries, or does this model hold them back?
Well, this is a big question, isn't it? Whether China is sufficiently high on the periodic table of innovation. My view is this: that if you look at it as a spectrum, China can get pretty high up on the spectrum of kind of, not sort of primary innovation, but they can do a lot of tinkering within that scale and do pretty well to get value added. They may not have a lot of, people doing theoretical physics and whatnot, but I wouldn't discount the ability of the Chinese to squeeze enough out of the sort of innovation equation to actually have substantial benefit for themselves, whereas the West may continue at the very top end to have a monopoly. But who knows? That could change too.
John, Bussey, what is your opinion?
On the technology curve, I think there's just no question that China will be at the very top, right along with us and with parts of Europe. It's just a matter of time. Just the generation of engineers in the country, the ability to have learned from the West by going to the West, by ripping off technology and applying it to their own country. So anybody who doubts whether China has the innovative acumen need only look back at history to determine that in fact they do, and the aspirations.
Well, here's the nation that created the gunpowder and paper, and also they changed the world. So far, they have not. In this iteration, they have not done that.
Yeah, you have 1.3 billion people with big aspirations, and so they'll be right at the top of the curve. It's kind of a matter of time. They're already much further up the curve than anybody would have thought. But this point about business attitudes, Marcus Broccoli and Kathy Chun are in the audience, and it'd be cool to kind of hear from them at some point also, because they lived through the period of China's ascension to the WTO, when the business community in the West in general, particularly Europe and the United States, were the advocates of China. They were the ones doing the door knocks all around Capitol Hill. Now it's completely changed. So the latest AmCham, U.S. China Business Council surveys all show a majority of businesses saying they're getting hammered by this new anti-monopoly law. It's the latest non-tariff barrier that China's using to screw the Westerners. It follows on from an indigenous innovation, which was used. Our colleague Jim McGregor wrote about this fabulously for the Chamber of Commerce, used very extensively to hammer foreigners in select industries where China wants to build its own national champions. And it's going to do so. And anti-monopoly law, yeah, it's being used to fix some price-fixing problems that have happened domestically as well as with foreign companies, but it's being used primarily to hold foreign companies at bay. So even though those survey results are as bad as they are, 90%, more than 90% of companies are still reporting profits out of China. So there's an inevitability to Western involvement in China, regardless of how badly Western companies get treated, and increasingly Western diplomats, including Jimmy Carter. I was at a National Committee on U.S. China Relations thing last night where they were talking about energy in China. China's now the biggest energy consumer, in the world, having bypassed the United States. That trajectory, economically, energy consumption, all of this, and innovation, is going to build those national champions, and they are going to compete incredibly effectively against the United States, not just because of state subsidies, but because they've learned how to do it internationally.